everyone. Welcome to Avalon Day 2. Yesterday we talked about what this series is about, what we plan to do, and we started the very first part of our design doc. A couple of things I learned from my very first video. First of all, I cannot just start recording. I'll have to prepare for it. And I myself have to, I at least cannot think, speak, and typing at the same time. So we're going to have to make some changes the second day, which is first I have prepared today's content. Second, we are going to have a little bit shorter video so that you guys don't have to spend time waiting for me thinking about what I'm gonna say, type, or do. So hopefully this would make the whole thing more smoother, a little bit smoother. So yeah, let's get started. So first of all, after yesterday, I did. I redid the first part of the design doc. So what I've changed is that in the background, we really should go through the gameplay first, and all the different issues, then making changes to spend more time on problem statement. And don't worry, I have updated all this in GitHub. Later I'll share the GitHub link, the repo link in the video description. You guys can read all about it. So yeah, let's start day 2. So once we have settled on the problem, now we want to, like I mentioned yesterday, we really want to make sure that we are fixing the right problem. We are going to the right direction from the very beginning. So we want to focus on these first, then start the technical design. But gladly we have identified the problem yesterday, so we are just going to start the technical design right now. And the technical design, to me, well, I guess I have a habit of going top down, which is also the recommended way in the industry. We want, so software is all about input and output. So the technical design should really start with asking ourselves a couple of questions. For example, who are the users? What's the input and output? And in what format and order the information and the data will be presented and processed from and to the customers. With that, and yeah, also this is a very common, it's a recommended thinking pattern in the technical interviews in the for the system design questions. So we always want to make sure, okay, to clarify what the problems are, what restrictions do we have, what's the input output, and only then start to define the input and output and start filling the gaps. Okay, so let's take a look at our technical design. So first of all, let's ask, who are the users? Users, of course, are the game players, but we have one more row in this case, which is the game admin. Game admin is the person who actually creates the game. And after some consideration, I think game admin really should be separated from the player, because in this case there might be a chance that game admin just knowing everybody's role and having so it's separate concerns. Let's design admin and players separately so that it provides us some flexibility in the future to change either the interface or the way conveying information for these users. So the game admin, so again, we now know one of the users is the game admin. Then what does this person do? The first of all is, of course, creates the game. They create the game, they set the game configuration. And if you read about the rules, you would know now that we can decide if we can have assassin, if we include Avalon, and the third one is some like very custom requirements from the friends we often play the game with, which is we are going to give a customized number of assassination attempts to the evil team, because sometimes they're just because sometimes there's just one too good of a player in the good team, so that let's do even the odds. The evil team is going to have multiple assassination attempts. So and of course the role knowledge of each role. So some people would ask, okay, why do we want to configure this? So to answer this question, I want to take a pause and say something not about particularly this project. So the reason why the word soft in software is because software is supposed to be easily changed and configured. And this is the ultimate goal of every single software project, and many people not in the industry really believe so. Oftentimes we hear, okay, this is one small feature, I'm just asking you to change this one small thing, why is it so hard, why it takes such a long time, blah blah blah. But the thing is, to make a software soft, air quote, is much harder than one might imagine. It takes a discipline and rigorous review of every single change, because things deteriorate. And the bigger a project is, the more complicated it is, the more components it has, and changing one thing without affecting other components becomes harder and harder, to a point which is almost impossible. I strongly encourage everybody to keep in mind that the piece of software, or even a small component or function or whatever you're writing, they really should be as isolated as possible, and as configurable as possible, so that it provides the flexibility of, and be more prepared for future changes. So in this case, the knowledge of each role, even though the game rule is set, but we always have to consider the possibility of some people just play this game differently, and we simply do not know their own situation. Maybe they have like a very good player in the game and they just want to have extra challenges. We never know. So this configuration will have to configure it. So instead of hard code it, why not just make it configurable with this one single option. And in the future, if we do need to provide more configurations, we can easily just add a configuration without even changing the code itself. It is definitely the best practice of dealing with this kind of things to make things as flexible as possible, as configurable as possible. Okay, so let's circle back. Other than setting the configuration, the game admin should also be able to send out the game invitation so that the other players could join the game. And this invitation ideally should be a link that someone can click on. But let's leave this discussion later. And the last one is the game admin should officially start a game so that all the players receives their role and role knowledge and just start the game. And for the players, we really want them to be able to join the game via invitation, and my first idea is a URL, basically a link, but let's discuss about that later because this is a technical detail. We do not and we should not make any assumptions at this phase. Let's not assume anything until we have a better understanding of what we want to do here. And the second part is receive role and role knowledge after getting started. So if you took a look at the video and the game rule I shared above, each role knows certain players. For example, the evil teams, most of the evil teams knows each other, and the role Merlin knows almost all the evil team members. The villagers, also known as servants of Merlin, doesn't really know anything. So in real life, we have this process of everybody close their eyes and extend their thumb in order and people so that people can see it. But since we prepare, we want to come up with a piece of software to help them dealing with this. We could just randomly assign the role and just give them the necessary information. After that, it's receive the last event of the game. Of course, we're currently on which mission and currently on which round of the mission, who is the current leader. We want the players to be able to check the previous missions, which mission succeeded, which mission failed. And for each previous mission, we want to know how many rounds did it have, who is the leader of that round, who this leader nominated, and how all the players voted for this proposal. No matter this round got rejected or approved, we still want to know that because that is vital information for players to know who's who. And we also want the pending actions. So for example, if currently we're voting for a round, we want the players to know in real time who have voted and who have not. And if we're waiting for a round leader to submit a proposal, we want to know who the round leader is and the fact that we are waiting for that person to submit a proposal. Also, we want the nominees to we all like, and when we are now the nominees are voting for a mission, we want to know who have voted and who have not. Also, at last, if assassination, if the evil team do get assassination attempts, we want to know we are pending for that. So this is about receiving information, and how about giving information? For example, we want to allow every single player to be able to vote for a team proposal, and if a player is one of the nominees which got approved, we want that player to be able to vote for a mission if they fail a success. Uh, if uh, if the player is the current leader of the round, we want that player to be able to pick a number of nominees for this mission and submit the proposal. And at last, if again assassination is agreed upon, then we want the assassin to be able to pick a target to assassinate. So these are all the actors and the actors, the actions they can do, the information they'll receive. I think this is a pretty conclusive list, and if we do miss something, we'll have to come back and make updates on it. Some consideration. Well, again, this is on a very early stage. This is almost the side note to self kind of a section, but we still have to keep this in mind. The first thing is, of course, the communication between the player and the system must be real time and is bidirectional. What we're saying is, like for example, we want the players to know who has voted and who has not. So this information must be broadcasted to all the players if any of the players voted. So so that in this case, a player submit this information of his or her vote to this particular proposal to the system. The system process it and broadcast this piece of information. So this player has voted this piece of information to everybody. So we can see that the information is transferred from a player to the system, then the system to all players. So in this case, so this is actually a quite important part, is that the communication must be directional, bidirectional, not one way, because normally we're just getting information from the system. The system rarely tells us anything unless we ask for it. So so that's why I put this in the very beginning. This is a very unique characteristic of this project. We'll have to think very hard about this. And the second part is the system must be accessible via the internet. Why is this important? Because one of the problem statement is actually the very first problem statement is that one of the pain points is all the players must be physically together to play this game, and we want to help with that. So we'll have to allow players to be able to communicate with the system wherever they are. So the only option we have now is the internet. So the system must be available on the internet, and the users must be able to access it. And the third part is the third consideration is that if the client side crashes or a player lost connection, they must be able to restore all the existing information easily. Ideally from just the rejoining or just click again on the invite. Why is that? Because one of the major problems of using things on the internet is that we cannot really, we don't have any control over the environment on the client side. For example, if the they use a phone to access our system, their phone could crash, their browser could crash, they could accidentally click refresh, they could lose their connection, their battery might die. They could drive through a tunnel, lots of things might happen, and we just cannot assume they always have a perfect connection and that they stay online all the time. So restoration from scratch is another very essential part of this project. So remember, I have mentioned that we always want to give multiple, to compare different approaches and compare their pros and cons. So this is one example of it. So first of all, we think about the client side first, because again, whatever we do is to accommodate the customers, the users, the players. So it is always a good idea to start from their point of view to see what they're going to use, how they're going to access our system, and what kind of problems they might encounter. So I have listed 5 different approaches, which are web page, email, text message, native app, and other IM app like WhatsApp or Telegram. So after careful consideration, I do think web page is the best, because for email and the text message, it is pretty hard to describe all this information using text. It's almost impossible without some dynamic UI to show all this information in a readable manner. Think about it. We have 5 missions. Each mission has 5 rounds. So in the long game, we're facing up to 25 rounds, each round with 10 players. That's 250 lines at least of information to show, not to mention which mission failed, which round failed, and that again adds about 20 lines of text, and sending out that every single time is really hard. Plus, email and text message, there's no guarantee of delivery. We cannot know if a user has received it, and of course, they could always just text or email back saying, "Okay, get me the latest status," but there's no way we could automate for the players. So I really think these are not the best ideas, but the good thing is it is easily implemented. So we want to keep this in our sleeve. So this might be ways to maybe share the invitations. So we also considered a native app. So the good part of native app is, of course, it's much smoother it's definitely better for user experience. It's definitely more stable than either web page or web page is almost the only other way people can use it from a mobile device. But the problem is that it's very hard to develop and very hard to deploy. So think about it. If we were to come up with a native app, we'll have to support iOS, Android, and for iOS it's somewhat easier, even though Apple does charge a fee for a developer account, and it's I think they charge you every year. It was 200 something Canadian dollars. And on the Android side, it's even worse because you have to submit your app to different marketplace, and the maintenance alone is just a nightmare. So for this project, I think for the sake for the sanity of the developers, I think unless we were making huge money out of this, I don't think the mobile app. I do think mobile app, the native app itself, is an overkill for project this size. And of course, there's IM apps like WhatsApp or Telegram. It's the same thing as text message. There's no guarantee of delivery. It's text-based. There's no dynamic UI, or it's very hard for us to create one. So I think at the moment, web page is the choice I'm going to make. Okay, so I am working on creating some wireframes and I think this is a good habit when delivering client side, when design the user interface for players, because with the wireframes you kind of force yourself to think about the flow and the interaction, the information your user gets, and the interaction the users make to your project. So I will include a couple of wireframes tomorrow, and we'll continue on the server side. So to recap, today I think I just mentioned this one thing, which is to make your software soft, to make it as configurable as possible and as flexible as possible. Do not possible. Oh, can't type. Try to assume less. Okay. Yeah, let's wrap up. I think 30 minutes is a pretty good size. I don't cram too much information every single time. And also I myself have again submitted this I'm updating the design doc every single day. So I have submitted it to GitHub, and I will leave the link in the description. Okay, let's wrap up day 2. Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow. Bye.